I'm here with Scott of Voyager to talk about their latest record, Fearless in Love, out right now on all streaming platforms. It's a pleasure having you on the channel. It's a pleasure to talk to you about this album. How are things going with you?
Great, and thanks for having me. It's just been awesome. The record release has been a real success. I feel like everyone's already picking their favorite songs, and it's just been a super positive release. I'm just stoked to have it out there, to be honest.
You said a key word for me right there, which is success. In today's modern world, how does a band like Voyager measure success when it comes to an album release?
That's a good question. I mean, I think provided people are loving what we're doing and we're seeing, any form of growth, I think that's a positive. I think having done Eurovision has allowed us to get to a broader audience that we wouldn't maybe necessarily get a hold of. And I think that's a huge success for us. I think really our music being able to reach a new audience is really important because we've got some pretty deeply enfranchised fans, but it'd be nice to be able to expand out, from there a little bit more. Because the thing we always hear is, how come we've never heard of Voyager before today? Like, how come I've never heard of you guys? So that's the thing we want to try and crack. We want to break through that if we can.
So you guys got this album now. You mentioned Eurovision. Do you feel like the combination of the two happening one right after the other is the perfect formula to crack those doors open?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's an interesting one because maybe a lot of the people who watch Eurovision might not necessarily be metal fans, but we're very much a gateway kind of band anyway. I don't think we're necessarily the kind of band that would turn new listeners of heavy music off. So I see it as a really good opportunity to kind of broaden our horizons as a band, and hopefully we can convert some people along the way, because I mean metal is awesome, and it's an underrated genre. So why not be the band that brings more new fans to the genre?
By the way, I just want to mention that I spent some dollars voting for you guys on Eurovision.
Thank you. It felt like the fan vote was pretty brutal for the grand final, but it was a two-horse race. We all knew that. So yeah, thank you, appreciate it.
Yeah, I felt compelled to spend some money online, and I voted for you guys and Lord of the Lost. I definitely put some money on both bands because I wanted metal to be represented, and if I'm going to say that, I need to put the money where my mouth is. So I actually did that. I actually did that.
Legend.
Uh,
That's awesome. Yeah.
Have you guys had taken a chance? I know now you guys are in the middle of this album cycle, but have you guys taken a chance collectively or even individually to look back at what you guys achieved this year and the participation in that contest, and just really take it all in to see how meaningful it was, not just for the band, but for metal in general, to have you guys representing Australia?
Yeah, I mean that's a brilliant question, and it's been so insane for the last 6 months. We all kind of had a moment after we had performed. It was while Sam Ryder was performing at the grand final, where we all just burst into tears. We're just like, oh my god, that just happened. We just did that. We just played Eurovision. And that was like one of the first real moments where we kind of let it sink in, after just being bombarded with all of the best things. But it was so chaotic that there was really no moment to reflect. And once we had gotten home from Eurovision, it was straight on to Australian shows. And so I think really now has been really the first time where we've been able to sit back and go, okay, we got through everything, and we can now sort of, yeah, take a moment to recognize how cool it was to be given that opportunity. And we felt like we wanted to do Australia proud, we wanted to do our state proud, we wanted to do heavy metal proud. We might not be the heaviest of bands, and we might not be the band that everyone wished could represent heavy music at Eurovision, but we take a lot of pride in what we did. And I feel like if it's going to bring more people to the genre, then that's a win, across the board. I'm not really, I'm anti gatekeeper. If anything, I want more people to appreciate and like what we do. So Yeah, I mean, it was just an honor, man, just a huge honor.
So as you look back, not at the contest, but as you look back at the making of Fearless in Love, is there anything that you walked away with saying that, wow, this was a great memory, and every time I play a song from this record, I'll think of this moment?
Yeah, I mean, I think it might sound a little bit, a little bit, I guess, lame. I don't know. But to me, the coolest thing about working on this album was being able to sit in this room that you see here. This is where we wrote most of the album. To just rock up on a Sunday morning and have coffees and write music together. To me, there was something really kind of wholesome and awesome about the writing process. Because we recorded and wrote this one quite differently. We would normally be in a jam room somewhere with our instruments in front of us, all playing at volume. But this time around, we decided to try and write all the music in a studio environment instead, where we could all sort of sit down and analyze each other's parts. And there was something really nice about that. It felt like it felt more homely. It felt, yeah, it just felt like five friends getting together and creating great music. And I think that the end result kind of shows, um, because it was just a joyful time. Even all the really heavy, moody stuff that we wrote for the record, we were still, really excited about. And yeah, the whole thing was just awesome. Like the whole writing process was great. I felt like we had really found a method that was not only fun, but also very productive as well. Like we felt like we weren't playing over each other. When you're in a loud room and all you're hearing is drums like being blasted into your ears, you can't really focus on what it is that you want to accomplish, or you're not really hearing what everyone else is doing. So yeah, I guess the best memory was just those Sunday mornings, just getting together and actually working on the record together. It was just fun and awesome.
No, are these changes part of the growth that you guys have been involved in? Because you guys have been around for a while, so you always going to take lessons learned from every single record. So coming into this decision to take this approach, does this also impact the growth of the band going forward in terms of how future records will work, the future sound of the band?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, we took some of the Eurovision songwriting mentality and applied it to this album, and I think the results sort of speak for themselves. I feel like the record is very, very concise, very focused. You know, the the really deeply enfranchised progressive metal fan might hear that and go, "Oh no!" Like, but it's not really about us trying to censor ourselves or censor what we're doing. It's more like we're taking a much more analytical and deeper approach to everything. And I don't see any reason why we wouldn't continue to use this process, because it was enjoyable. It felt productive. We all kind of had a deeper and more intimate connection with the music because we were all helping each other craft each other's parts. There were points where we would be helping Ash with the drums, or he would do something that would influence what we were doing. And these are things that would just go completely overlooked when you're playing in a loud jam room environment. So I just see no reason why we would ever go back to doing it the way we did, because it was just such a success. But I mean, who knows what the future holds?
So,
I feel like there's been a huge difference there creatively anyway.
so is the growth of the band a result of the growth of the individual parts that make the band?
I would say it's a combination of the two things. Like we obviously all grow as individuals, and we all have new ideas that we want to sort of throw into the mix. Like two of the songs, Ultraviolet and Gren, were two songs that I had actually written for a completely separate project that I was doing. And then we sort of Voyagerified them. And that worked out really well. And I think those two tracks have a distinctly different flavor to some of the other songs on the album as a result. Um, yeah, so I guess when you take five individuals who are all trying to grow and learn, and then put it into a band that's also growing in its own unique way with more shows or more opportunities. Yeah, I just see all of it as a positive, whether it's coming from the individual or coming from the collective.
As a guitar player, how do you find room for the guitar sound to have an impact when you have so many synths surrounding those guitars, circling the wagons, if you will, around those guitars?
Yeah, Yeah, that's a good question, man. The whole thing is a constant battle between whether the guitars are making a statement or whether the synths are making a statement, because you've got this big old mid range that all of that stuff fills, and if you don't know what you're doing with it, it can just turn into a mess. So there were points where we really wanted to strip the guitars back and let the keys do a lot of the talking. You know, when you think about what each instrument provides, guitar tends to provide those really big, heavy moments, those big impact moments, those accents. And a lot of what Danny's keyboard writing does is adds to the atmosphere. And, you know, for us, like for Simi and I, we've had many conversations about, you know, how cool it would be to hear a Voyager record with just the synths and the vocals with nothing else on it. And I feel like we're better equipped now as older and perhaps more matured musicians to actively step back when we feel like the synths should make a statement. Like we don't feel like we need to fill every gap with guitar riffs and ideas. But the cool thing about that is that when the guitars do come in, it's like wham, you know, you really feel it. And I feel like the production quality of the record really makes those guitars, when they enter, it actually makes a statement. So it's just about trying to serve the song in a lot of ways. It's like, you know, if the synths need to speak here, then we need to do less. If we need the guitars to really take to the forefront, then the synths need to sit back, you know. So it's really just about trying to assess what's best for that part of the song.
And you're saying that when the guitars come in, they make a statement. I mean, if there's one part where they make a statement is in the guitar solos. I thought they were outstanding. Uh,
Awesome.
when you're looking at the solos for these tracks, what are you looking to give the song? Because like you said, it's all about serving the track. So what are you looking at giving the song with these kind of powerful solos?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of an opportunity in a way to level up the track, to really like lean into what the song is already trying to do. So for example, Submarine is like super bombastic and ridiculous, and it's almost like parodying itself in a lot of ways. It's such a ridiculous song. So you know, my solo in that, I wanted to reflect some of that cheekiness and ridiculousness in the song by, you know, making things have like big leaps and silly runs and stuff like that. And I wanted to have this like playfulness that I feel like the song already has. You know, to me, it's a lot easier to write a solo for a song that's already got its own personality. You know, once you've kind of got that personality fleshed out, putting a solo over the top is just taking that dial and just cranking it as hard as you can, or as much as you feel you should. You know, and when you've got Submarine, a song like that, it's like, yeah, let's just make that as ridiculous as possible. But you know, Gren, to take the complete opposite end of the spectrum, that one is really just about trying to lean into a kind of solitude or a sense of pensiveness or reflectiveness. The synths really lean into that mood, and so again, like trying to generate that same mood through the solo is what's most important, I think. You know, it's not necessarily about how many notes you play or whatever. I'm not like some crazy shred guitar player. You know, I'm much more legato, you know, Michael Ackerfeld kind of guy. I don't really play a shit ton of notes. But you know, I like to think that the solos make a statement in their own way, that they're sort of, again, sort of leaning into what's already there in the song.
You perfectly lead me into my next question, which was going to be, what kind of guitar player do you see yourself as? You're not a shredder, we know that, but do you have an idea of who you are yourself as a guitar player and how comfortable you are within their own skin?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of an interesting thing trying to take something that's as esoteric as, you know, how do I see myself as a musician? Like, music is sound, and you know, sound is just a bunch of waves that bounce off of walls, right? So I mean, it's kind of interesting that, you know, you can tell who Ackerfeld, you can tell an Ackerfeld solo when you hear it. You can hear, you know, when you hear Dave Gilmour, you can tell it's Dave Gilmour. You know, maybe I'm not at that level, but I do feel like I feel comfortable in my approach to music. I feel like my riff writing is very much something that is identifiable to me, which is really cool. Like there have been multiple times in Voyager songwriting sessions where someone will go, "This needs a Scott riff," and that feels awesome. You know, hearing that from your peers, not just from fans, is really cool. Yeah, I feel comfortable with where I'm at. You know, there are definitely points where I wish I could play more notes. I wish I had the facility to do it. I genuinely, you know, I've tried to get my chops up, and I keep hitting this brick wall over and over again. So that can be really frustrating for me. But by the same token, there's very rarely a time where playing a solo of that nature would suit my personality anyway. I feel like a lot of what I do is much more reflective and pensive to begin with. So it doesn't really crop up in my own creative brain all that often. But, you know, it would be cool to reach that level. But again, it's, you know, if I'm not going to use it that often, is there much point in me spending, you know, hours and hours every single day getting it there? I'm not so sure. I'd rather spend that time on something else. But yeah, I feel comfortable with where I'm at the moment.
Do you have a favorite song guitar-wise on this record that you really enjoy playing?
I think it's a oh man, that's a tricky one. I kind of like elements of each track because there are unique challenges. You know, a lot of the riffs on this album, or at least a fair few of them, were not even written with guitar as the starting point. Like the verse two of Submarine is a bass synth part. A lot of the riffs in Ultraviolet were originally bass synth parts that I converted to guitar. So they kind of offer their own challenges because when you're just playing a riff on your own instrument, you will always default to something that feels comfortable to the instrument, right? But if you're trying to transpose or transcribe something from a different instrument, it's going to naturally do things that you wouldn't do regularly on the guitar. So that those kind of riffs offer their own challenges. But I think for me personally, I really love playing Best Intentions, Gren, and Listen is actually really fun too, because like that song to me has a whole bunch of like, you know, 90s 2000s Devin Townsend-esque riffage on it that I just love to play. So
I don't disagree with anything you said, specifically in terms of the terms of that song and how it feels a little bit Devin Townsend-ish, if you will. There's definitely some of that. There's some of that sprinkled throughout the entire record. Last question for you. You guys have a European tour announced, but the real question here is, when are you guys bringing your show to North America?
Ooh, good question. Well, it is public knowledge now that we have signed a deal with Paladin, who look after the likes of Dream Theater. So they're looking after us for our North American shows. We have plans to be there next year. Let's put it that way. So that there are solid plans in place. We have actually really wanted to get back to the States, but it can sometimes be quite difficult logistically. We've had to obviously prioritize Europe a little bit more since Eurovision has, you know, taken us in that direction. But rest assured, we will be in the States next year. It's just a matter of really solidifying dates and everything like that. But it is 100% happening. So we're super excited because like the last time we did a proper US tour was with Evergrey in 2015. So it's been a hot minute.
Yeah, it's been at least 2 pandemics.
Yeah. Yeah. Please no more of those. Can we just call it at 2?
I think we're
at
done
1
for this.
even?
I think we're done for this century. I think we can I at least I hope so. At least I hope that's the case. But
Yep,
it'll be super
absolutely.
cool to see you guys in North America. I'm looking forward to those dates to be announced because it's going to be an absolute treat to see you guys perform the songs from this record, from the old records, live and on stage across North America. Scott, thank you very much for your time today. It was an absolute pleasure to talk to you about the record, about Eurovision, about your music, about your guitar playing. So thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Pedro. Thanks for having me.